I guarantee you right now, as to when I'm speaking, as to when you're watching this video, there is somebody somewhere watching him through a camera. And you want to know why I'm so confident in that? Because check out what Carmelo Anthony had to say about his 15-game suspension in 2006. The NBA doesn't need Ja Morant. Ja Morant needs the NBA. It's funny how life works. When things are going great and you're sitting there going, man, how can things get better in this? They somehow, some way manage to get better. Vice versa. When things are going terrible and you're like, man, it can't get any worse than this, it somehow, some way continues to get worse. It's rather simple. When things are going good, they get better. But when things are going bad, they get worse. And I think that right there alone goes to prove to you that life isn't fair. I wanted to start off this video by saying that because that is exactly what's going on with Mr. Ja Morant. The overdramatic, and yes, I'm labeling it as overdramatic. I'll talk about that in just a second. Saga and lore of Ja Morant is continuing to go on. But not only is it continuing to go on, like I said in the intro, it is somehow, some way managing to get worse. And at this point in time, I think it's dumb. I really do. I wish I could sit up here like all these people on ESPN or anybody talking about this and trying to overhype the situation and make it more dramatic than what it actually is, but I'm not going to do that. I don't believe in overhyping situations like saying, oh, Ja Morant's career's in jeopardy. Ja Morant's career is completely over. He's ruining his life and blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm talking about. The main reason I'm not buying into that BS is because I don't believe it. I don't think Ja Cornball Morant is ruining or sabotaging his career because he's listening to NBA Youngboy songs and brandishing a gun. What I do believe is it's halting his career. It's putting a stop in it, at least for now, but it's not ruining it. And also, and I hate to say this, but it's true, we'll talk about that in just a second as well. I hate to say I'll talk about it in just a second because I want to talk about it now, but I got to give you more context to the situation. And oh yeah, while I'm thinking about it, we're not doing no intro, none of that. And somebody actually tweeted this at me today saying, yo, Matt, you haven't told people to subscribe in like a month or two. What's up with that? Now look, man, sometimes I forget, and I guess I forgot for a month, but it's rather simple. If you like college football, college basketball, or hey, some NBA, some NFL content, sports content in general here and there, consider joining our amazing community. We got one of the best ones out there. There's no debate. I don't like doing those corny intros, none of that. It's simple. Consider subscribing. We would love to have you here. If not, that's cool too. It really does mean a lot though whenever we do gain new subscribers. Now getting that out the way, let's get down to business. By this point in time, I'm sure 99.3% of you know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, go watch ESPN, go watch some of our previous videos. I'm not explaining it. To make a long story short, Mr. Ja Morant has been making some dumb decisions. That's going to be the word of this video, dumb. The newest of new reports going on is that Ja Morant reportedly and allegedly brought a gun on the team plane, and yeah, that could lead up to a hefty suspension of 50 games. That is a big, and I mean a big no-no, everybody knows this, the NBA does not play around when it comes to firearms. I have to be very cautious and careful in this next statement because if I say too much, the higher-ups will come after me, it's not a joke. And I can't speak about it too much because if you've been following the channel for a minute, you know I've already spoken about this a couple of weeks ago and a couple of months ago. You can only speak on situations like this so much before they do eventually try to come after you or try to shut you down. I think I'm going to be okay though because I'm not going to go into major details. Most people out here underestimate the power that the higher-ups have out here. Who are the higher-ups, you may ask? Well, that's why we call them the higher-ups. They don't have names. It's just guys you see in the black suits and the black sunglasses. These are the guys that come out of nowhere when things aren't going the way they want them to go, they shut it down or they correct it. Whoa, hold on. I know what you're sitting there saying. Yo, Matt, come on, man. Are you one of these tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists? And no, I'm not. This is just common sense. I told you guys this all throughout football season. I'm the last person to believe in stuff like this. Me, Matt Be Great 5 years ago, I wouldn't even entertain this conversation. But the older I get, the more I mature, the more I see things happen in this life, I'm starting to wake up a little bit. And I don't want to seem like one of those weirdo woke people, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. These people, the quote-unquote higher-ups, can find out anything and everything about you. Let me ask you a question. Who's Ja Morant's boss? Although, yeah, he's a big-time, big shot, whatever you want to call it, he still has a boss. That's the NBA. Well, to go on top of that, the NBA, yeah, it's its own corporation, but even they have a boss. That's the higher-ups. The higher-ups own the NBA, and the NBA is one of the best businesses out there. It's one of the biggest entertainment businesses out there, and if somebody tries to ruin that or throw some dirt on it or make it look bad, the higher-ups will put an end to it just like that. Whether you like this or not, it is a cold, hard fact. Money runs the world. The NBA and the NFL make so much money, it's flat out stupid. It's ridiculous. Why is that? Oh yeah, because it's the entertainment industry. And for the NBA to continue to generate all that revenue, they don't want any bad publicity, and I get it. A lot of these NBA players, a lot of these NFL players, professional athletes, they think they're invincible, but they're not. I want to make this astronomically clear. The NBA doesn't need Ja Morant. Ja Morant needs the NBA. I'm going to say that one more time. The NBA does not need Ja Morant. Ja Morant needs the NBA. It's the same thing with the NFL and Antonio Brown. The NFL doesn't need Antonio Brown. They can replace him just like that. And it's the same thing for Ja Morant. I think he's one of the most talented guys out there, but NBA doesn't need him. The NBA is going to succeed with or without Ja Morant. Period. The end. And the last thing the NBA wants is for a guy to go on Instagram Live brandishing a gun and just doing all the crap and cornball activities that Ja Morant's been doing. I say all that to lead me into my next point perfectly. The NBA and the higher-ups now have all eyes on Ja Morant 24/7. I guarantee you right now, as to when I'm speaking, as to when you're watching this video, there is somebody somewhere watching him through a camera. I guarantee it. And you want to know why I'm so confident in that? Because check out what Carmelo Anthony had to say about his 15-game suspension in 2006. I'm going to remind you, this was in 2006 when technology wasn't even close to what it is now. Quote unquote, I go to speak to him and say, why'd you do me like that? Talking to the NBA commissioner, Stern, he said, do you want to be in the streets or do you want to be in the NBA? You're effing with a corporation now. I know who you with. I know where you live at. I know when you close your eyes. And Carmelo said, that's when I knew the NBA was effing with the feds. Oh man, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to remind you, that was in 2006. Fast forward in time to 2023, you want to try to sit up here and tell me that the NBA, the higher-ups, aren't watching Ja Morant like a hawk now? Come on, man. Let me ask y'all a serious question since we're also on the topic of David Stern being the commissioner of the NBA. And this goes back to the NBA not wanting to get that bad image look or bad publicity, whatever you want to call it. One of the biggest, and I mean one of the biggest absolute conspiracy theories out there is what happened with Michael Jordan. Think about how crazy it was at the time for a guy in his prime. We're talking about a guy not in his late 30s, early 20s. In his straight up prime, he's coming off a back-to-back-to-back NBA titles, and he walks away from the game to play baseball? And what's everybody going to say? Oh, well, he did that because his father died and he wanted to play baseball because that was his dad's favorite sport. Get out of here with that. If he wanted to play baseball to show respect to his dad or just check it off his bucket list, he could have done that when he's 40. You don't got to be in great athletic shape to play baseball. And it's not so much about the fact that he walked away from the game to play baseball. It's more the fact that he walked away in his prime, coming off the back-to-back-to-back titles. And what's the conspiracy theory back then? And it holds true till this day. Michael Jordan, he had a gambling problem, and the NBA was cracking down on him. And for all my youngsters out there who don't know this, David Stern was the shadiest commissioner out there. But, and I have a big but, he had a soft spot for Michael Jordan. Why? I don't know. He just liked him. Maybe it has something to do with he was a fan of him. So what did David Stern do? And let me remind you, this is my conspiracy theory. He met up with Jordan and say, hey, they're cracking down on you, so why don't we come to this agreement where you just walk away because it's the best for the both of us and you can come back in a few years? That's what I believe solely happened because the NBA, they didn't want to ban him for life. He was the face of the NBA. There was a point in time where Michael Jordan was arguably the biggest figure, not just in America, but the entire world. If the NBA would have banned him for life, it would have been chaotic to say the least. So they came to the conclusion and they met on even grounds. Hey, we're just going to quote unquote ban you for a couple of years, but really it's you walking away from the game to play baseball. And I really don't believe some of y'all understand how bad it would have looked if it would have came out that Michael Jordan, the star of the NBA, basically a legend, not just in America, yet again in the entire world, was gambling on his games. People would have looked at the NBA differently. Nobody would have looked at it the same. And the counter argument is people are going to try to say, oh, well, he was burnt out. Burnt out? My counter argument to that is Michael Jordan, and you know this, everybody knows this, he's arguably the most competitive person to ever walk this earth. He don't get burnt out. Competitors like him and Kobe Bryant don't get burnt out. You know why they don't get burnt out? Because they love to win. They can't get enough of it. I digress, though. Getting back on track here with Ja Morant. Sorry, I'm all over the place. If the NBA found out what Carmelo was doing, they knew everything about him. They knew everything about Jordan. Yeah. They're going to know everything about Ja Morant too. I'm telling you straight up, they are going to find out everything, and I mean absolutely everything about Ja Morant now. And I'll go as far as to saying this, I bet already they're doing background checks on Ja Morant's friends that were at the club. Moving along here, there's a lot of people trying to say that, hey, There is a great possibility he could be suspended for 50 games, but I don't see that happening. And I also believe at this point in time, they've already confirmed that won't happen. But here's what we do know. Remember, Ja Morant isn't just suspended for 2 games. He's not coming back. It's said indefinitely. And when I say he's not coming back, I should have gave more context. There's no timetable set. Indefinitely means it could be 3 games, or it could be next year. It could be 2 years. Hopefully it's not 2 years, but I definitely think it's going to be longer than a 3 or 4 game stretch. And to back those claims even more, it's being said, there's an expectation within the Grizzlies that Ja Morant could be away from the team for an extended time. Quote unquote, more stringent, never even seen that word in my life before, penalties could come from the league, could come from the police. What does that mean though? It's kind of vague, right? I'm going to assume it means the NBA could say, hey, even if the police find you innocent or they don't have enough evidence or whatnot, we can still suspend you for 20 games if we want, just for being a flat-out idiot and flashing a gun. But what I ultimately think is going to come out of this is the league is going to sit down with Ja Morant and tell him, hey, you continue to hang out with these dudes you're hanging out with, you continue to post what you're posting on social media, act the way you're acting during the games, on the court and off the court, there's going to be some consequences. What are those consequences going to be? Who knows? But here's what I do know as a former athlete myself. If you ever played sports, I'm not talking about sat the bench, I mean actually played sports or you currently play sports, you're going to know this. Momentum is a real thing. But not only is momentum a real thing when you're playing sports, it's a real thing in life. You see, we got a lot of people that talk about the downward spiral. Your girlfriend breaks up with you start doing drugs, lose your job, downward spiral, right? But there's also a thing as an upward spiral. Your girlfriend can break up with you, then you start dating a supermodel, then you start going to the gym, you get big and strong, then you get a raise at your job. That's the upward spiral. I think you get my point. Momentum's a real thing. And at this point in time, before all this chaos was going on with Ja Morant, he was in that upward spiral. But now that spiral is no longer going up. It's flatlined. And you could also argue and say that if anything, it's starting to go down. I just hope for his sake, and I'm wishing him the best of luck, that this doesn't lead to other bad decisions. I'm not going to sit up here and say he's ruining his career. He's just made a couple of bad decisions. That's what it is. He's made some bad decisions. Let's not overcomplicate this. I'm very curious. Let me know your thoughts down below. But